time ago, God was sitting alone and looking. And as far as God's eye could see, there was nothing but blackness. No light, just darkness everywhere. He looked to the left, darkness. He looked to the right, darkness. Everywhere that God looked, there was darkness. God said, Nah, I have enough of this. So God thought and pondered and pondered and thought. And God smiled and clapped his hands. And when God smiled and clapped his hands, a spark grew. And God said, oh, this is good, but I can do better than that. And God took that light and he took that spark and he began to move it, and he grew and grew and grew until he had a ball of bright, brilliant light, and he flung it into the air and it went to his right. God said, this is good, but I can do better than that. So God took a little bit of that light, formed a small sphere in his hand, and flung that up in the air and created the moon. God was sitting feeling good because the sun was on his right and the moon was on his left. He said, this is good, but I can do better than that. And God started to think about what he could do, and God just got so full of happiness, he began to laugh. And when God laughed, sparks flew from his mouth, populating the heaven with stars. And God was, oh, that was good, but I can do better than that. God looked around and all this wonder in the sky, but there was nothing else except there were lights. And God wanted something else, something he could put his foot on. So God began to take the darkness, the nothingness, and God began to create a round sphere out of nothing, because God can make something out of nothing. And God began to work until he had this huge, huge sphere, and he flung it down from the heavens and said, now that's good, but I can do better than that. And God stepped down from the heavens and began to walk on the earth, and wherever God trod, the valleys were made and the mountains pushed up. And God said, this is good, but I can do better than this. God said, this needs something, needs something. And God was messing with his hands, and one of his fingernails came loose and fell down on the ground, and a tree grew out of it. God said, okay. So God clipped his fingers and flung him out in the earth, and trees began to spring up from the mountain, and trees began to spring up from the valley, and trees began to spring up everywhere. And God got so happy, he cried with joy, and his tears fell down from the heavens, and the streams flowed, and the streams flowed until it ran into and made the 7 seas. And God said, this is good, but I can do better than this. And God looked at his creation and said, that things are flowing and moving, but I don't know. God peered down into the water and saw nothing. He said, no, I can do better than this. And God clapped his hand twice. And the fishes began to populate the seas. And the dolphins began to populate the seas. And I started to make a joke about the dolphins, but I see no porpoise in that. And the whales began, and that's where the ministers get, well, and they began to populate the seas. God said, this is good, but I can do better than this. God stood back and he clapped his hands again. And the buffaloes began to roam, and the zebras began to charge, and the cheetahs began to run, and elephants began to do what elephants do. And God was feeling good. He said, oh, this is good, but I can do better than this. And God looked up in the sky, and nothing really going on up there. And he said, angels, come to me. And the angels came and had a little huddle. He said, I created the earth, I created the sun and the moon, I created the heaven and made the valleys and the mountains, I made the trees, but it's something missing. What can we do? And the angels shook their wings down. I don't know, God, you're God. And God said, wait a minute, hold up. Shake your wings again. Shake them real hard. Keep shaking them. Shake them. And the angels shook their wings so hard, feathers began to fly. And when they began to fall down to the earth, into the air, God snapped his hands again, and the birds came into being. And God said, oh, this is good. And some of the birds went down the water to get some fishy, and that's when he heard the first complaint. He said, why are you complaining? I just created the heaven and the moon, the stars out in the sky. What are you complaining? Well, God, we like to get the fishes, but every time we bend down to eat the fishes or the plants in the water, we get wet. We don't want to get wet. God lifted one of the birds up and said, put your feet in the water. Oh, God, you haven't been there. Put your feet in the water. And the bird stretched until his feet began to get in the water. And the bird went, woo! That was a whooping crane. And that's how the cranes came. God was feeling real good now. God said, oh yeah, this is good, but I can do better than this. So God began he took a plant, and he took leaves from the plant and started tossing them off, and trees began to grow, and the trees started complaining. I said, what are you complaining about? Well, it's kind of lonely when the birds are nesting or trying to get the insects in our barn. No one talks to us. God said, angels, bring me my pruning shears. And God began to clip and bark and leaves and nettles flew everywhere. And when they landed, flowers began to grow. sunflowers and daughter flowers and all kind of flowers began to grow. God said, this is good. But no sooner had the first flower opened up and blossomed in the morning, he heard more complaints. He said, what are you complaining about? Oh God, when the birds aren't, trying to get our petals, or the hummingbirds, because they don't know the word, when the hummingbirds aren't trying to get our nectar, or the bees aren't around, no one talks to us. We're down here. The trees don't talk to us. They have their noses stuck up in the air. God said, bring me a smaller pair of pruning shears. And God began to clip and clip and clip and clip and clip and clip, and things flew everywhere and landed in the earth, and grass began to grow up, and weeds began to grow up. That's another story. And grass began to flourish. And God said, this is good, but I can do better